Welcome to the Longbox Paradox, episode 36. I'm Dan, and we're going to be going over some curated picks for this week. I couldn't read everything, but I wanted to get this video out. So we're going to start out with DC Comics and Event Leviathan number 3. I've been really enjoying this story so far. Feel like this is Bendis kind of hitting his stride with DC and getting to play with the sandbox of these characters, especially this particular story. He's been kind of working with a couple of A-listers and then B and C-listers. The art by Alex Maleev, I really like it. It works in this kind of mystery book. And right away we jump into... they're at the Fortress of Solitude, which is now in the Bermuda Triangle, which they hammer home a lot during this issue that it is in the Bermuda Triangle. And we see the question going through some of the things in the Fortress of Solitude, and everybody's kind of talking and questions kind of listening. Some of it's about them, about the question, some of it's not. And the guessing starts, and they start talking about Jason Todd and the fallout of what happened. Jason Todd basically beat the crap out of all of them, took them all down in different points. Lois Lane was able to actually talk to him, and we end up doing the showing what happened during the fight. He took out all of them fairly quick. Green Arrow, Manhunter, all of them in different moments. Damian also says, he's never trusted Jason Todd, but he said he's one of the world's greatest fighters, showing that in beating them down. Him and Lois Lane have a discussion, and he basically starts talking about why it would make sense they'd think that it was him. Like, he's kind of angry. He never thought about it. Whoever it is has daddy issues, kind of talking about his guesses, different little things. He puts the spotlight back on Amanda Waller, and then they flash back or flash forward to where they're talking now after the fight, and they're like, wait, Amanda Waller was here? And she somehow got out. She also planted a bug there that Kellex couldn't find. And basically Waller is out in the wild now. She somehow got out of the Bermuda Triangle, which I feel like they need to explain that a little bit more. Something a little bit lacking there. And then Leviathan shows up, and Waller goes, I know who you are. And he basically says, you're bluffing, you don't know anything. And she talks about the mask. It's algorithmically designed specifically to create the perfect amount of fear and leadership confidence. Calls him a con artist, or her a con artist, whoever it might be. And starts talking about the Janus Initiative and a couple of other things. And also said, we thought you were going to offer me one of the mother boxes. And then Superman shows up and says, Miss Waller, are these men bothering you? End of the issue. Interesting finale, cliffhanger. How is Amanda Waller got Superman helping her? Is it Superman? Is it one of the robots? What exactly is it? What's going on here? I do like that they're making you second guess your guesses, where, some people did think it was Red Hood, and all of a sudden now you've had to flip because basically he said, you'd think it would be me, and I wish it was, but it's not. And then they started casting the light on Waller. My guess it's going to be someone who we're not anticipating. I thought for a while it was going to be Manhunter, but that probably doesn't make sense at this point. I'm actually out of guesses on this. I really don't know. I haven't caught on to it, and I did see Lord Retail, Jermaine from Acme Comics, tweet about it today or last night, talking about how, every guess he's had now he's second guess. So good job by Bendis making the reader second guess themselves, as well as the characters in it second guessing themselves. I'm gonna give this an 8. I really dug it. And I love that Lois Lane seems to be the smartest out of this group of detectives, and she is kind of taking the forefront on this. Tremendous job. I love it. It's really good, and this is what I've been waiting for from Bendis since he's gone to DC, and the fact he managed to string this out in Action Comics for so long is a pretty good testament of setting up the story, and this being pretty fascinating to watch, because whoever the character is, they seem to know something about the heroes. Don't exactly know what, but really interested to see where this goes. Very much. So now we're going to move on to Boom Studios and Once in Future by Kieron Gillen, Dan Mora, and Tamra Bonvillain. This is very much a Boom title. It's not very dark, and it's fun. Keeps you entertained. It has a bit of I hate to say this, the Librarians. That's kind of what it sort of reminds me of. Story starts out in Cornwall, Great Britain, and we have a gentleman who's meeting with a lady, and he's showing her this sword scabbard he found, and she's looking at it, and then she gets on the phone saying what she found is genuine, and then 3 men walk in, and they shoot this guy dead, and he says to them when they pull the gun on him, "What do you want?" And they say, "England back." And that's the end, the cut, and we go to an old age home, and there is a lady that they focus in on who is listening to the news, and they're talking about the crime, while the other members in the old age home are talking about how they want to watch Bake Off. And she's like, "Oh yeah, you can change it, but I hear that takes longer for people who are older for their fingers to heal from breaks." She then decides that she's going to go take a walk in the garden, and then we cut to her grandson Duncan, who is on a date. We show that he's a bumbling klutz. He's accidentally spilled wine on his date, and while he's trying to basically rescue how horrible his date's going, he gets a call from the old age home, and they're basically saying, "Hey, your grandmother wandered off." So suddenly his date kind of takes a turn. She's like concerned, and everything starts getting a little bit better, and then he gets a call from his grandmother saying that he needs to go meet her, and he goes there. She's pulling out some stuff from looks like a pond, and it's a giant weapons cache, and she starts randomly saying things like, "Yeah, I used to hunt vampires," and she's like, "Yeah, I used to. There are no vampires anymore. I ran out of them." And as she's explaining stuff, there's like this weird light in the background, and she's like, "Oh, have you ever heard of a questing beast?" And this damn thing's behind them. It's crazy looking giant snake head, a little bit of everything in it, and starts basically chasing him around, and she's just hunting for weapons to use for it. And he puts a big log in its mouth to kind of stop it for a bit. She eventually gets him a spear, and he holds his ground, and it just turns around and walks off. And she starts doing a little bit more telling of Duncan basically what's going on somewhat, or her past. She pulls a pistol out and shoots him by accident. She said she wanted to, give him a close shave, but she accidentally shoots him. And she's like, oh, the fingers aren't as, good as they used to be holding it. I get a little antsy, and she starts explaining about a magic sword that has a scabbard that can heal any wound. And he asks what the sword was, and she says, oh, Excalibur. And goes into a bit of a history of King Arthur and how there is this somewhat... it already sets in ahead of time that prophecy, kind of like with Harry Potter, can be one of two ways. It could be in the bad way or it could be in the good way. Basically, the prophecy is he'll return to Britain in its darkest hour. And she says that there was something about the prophecy that always rubbed me the wrong way. Never trust a prophecy that can be taken in two ways. Well, and she says, well, he could return because it's Britain's darkest hour, or his return could cause it. And that ends the book. So basically, we're going to get Dark King Arthur, basically. It's a really interesting read. It was somewhat dark, but at the same time, in the typical Boom Studios way, it was kind of a fun and adventure title. Kieron Gillen, just a damn good writer. Dan Mora's art took me a little bit to get used to. It's a little bit more cartoony than I've been used to lately, but after the first couple of minutes of it, like pages, I got used to the art, and it did move the story along well. I'm intrigued. I'm in for the next issue. Again, it was a real fun read. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. It's weird going from like the bleakness of Die to going to this adventure title with Gillen. But strong first issue. Pick it up. It's a buy. Get in on it while you can. I hate to say this, but this actually reeks of something that could become a movie or a property to be picked up. It just has that kind of big cinema adventure feel. And from here, we're going to go to a book that I'm blown away by. I more than I should be. Actually, this whole mini-series run going on and how it's bounced around from book to book. Powers of X number 2. This was, damn, it was an interesting read. Super interesting. I have to say, though, you have to read House of X 2 to really understand what's going on, because House of X 2 actually tied together House of X 1, Powers of X 1, and this, because once you get Moira's story in House of X 2, everything starts tying together, and you kind of get what she meant in the last in House of X or Powers of X1. It's fascinating. Hickman has he's made me care about X-Men again in a way I haven't in a long time. Well, we're going to start out right away. Island M in the Bermuda Triangle. Moira is there with Professor X, and they're meeting with Magnus, Eric, and they're talking about how their dreams, that they're friends, they have this dream, but they can never... Professor X talking like he's losing faith, and they've learned hard lessons. And Moira says, I may be the only person on the planet who truly understands what ails you both, but I have to warn you, my truth is profound. It really all comes down to one thing, Magneto. In this world, who determines what is truly good and what is truly evil? And they convince Magneto to take off his helmet, and Professor X shows him basically all of the failures. And it's like a run through everything that's happened in X history. You know, his Magneto's trial, just a little bit of everything, and it just swept up with all the failures he knows he had, and that him and Professor X have to join together, and it was the only way they could have a chance to win. And then we jump ahead, and it's Cyclops with Professor X with the Cerebro helmet that makes him actually look like Reed Richards' maker. And basically, they're telling Scott what his mission is going to be. And, you know, they have to destroy Mother Mold. We jump again, and we have Rasputin and Cardinal, and they're on Asteroid X, and it turns out Wolverine and all of them, they are working with Apocalypse, and Apocalypse is pretty much readying somewhat of a crusade, I guess you could call it. Jump ahead again, and Nimrod is there with his 2 human flunkies, and he's monologuing. Apparently Nimrod loves to monologue. And he's going on. He's like, I'll tell you. And one of the humans goes, no, really, I'd rather you keep talking to yourself. And he realizes what he said, and he apologizes. And Nimrod just destroys them. And he grabs one of the skulls and continues to monologue. Very interesting way to do it. We get Rasputin talking with Zorn and Wolverine. Basically kind of talking over things, and Apocalypse is like, well, I'm gonna lead, and it jumps again into the future, and now we're year 1000 into this timeline they've created for this new Hickman universe, and there's Nimrod now is like this floating orb, and these things materialize, and it turns out it is the Technarch Phalanx. I forget the name of that storyline, but the Phalanx basically were a warlock from New Mutants. And he's talking to these other, I guess they're humanoid robots, but they should basically, like, what do you seek? And they say Ascension. And then that ends the issue. Again, Hickman big thinking, this storyline, the way it's weaving together, the way it bounces back and forth between future, past, present, future, past. Really interesting. I didn't think this was the strongest issue. House of X seems to be stronger for some reason. Powers of X, and maybe it's because of the time jumps. I don't know. Like, it's not sucking me in as much. Where House of X 2, that Moira storyline going on through it, and just how fucking evil they made Destiny and Mystique in it when they came to Moira and just basically told her, everywhere you go, we'll kill you. No matter how many times you end up getting reanimated or resurrected, we will be there to kill you. And then one day you're going to kill yourself, and you won't be able to resurrect yourself because your powers won't have generated. They won't have manifested. Again, really super interesting, the way this is weaving together. But if I had to say, like, House of X, definitely better than Powers of X. I'm going to give this issue 6.5. I wouldn't call it weak, but it was hard for it to stand on its own. Just each time jump you do, you get a little snippet, but you're not really getting enough to whet the appetite, I should say, which I guess also you could say works because they're leaving you wanting more. Unfortunately, the morsel they're giving you isn't even enough to be considered a snack. But I'm still in for this. I want to see where it goes. Do I think we need to have 6 X titles spin out of this like is happening? No. I don't see a reason why we need an Excalibur title. There's a lot of things that I have some issues with. Some of the teams are super interesting, though. God, I could go on for a while about this subject. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for watching. For those who have been subscribing for a while, thank you for continued support. I appreciate it, and for some of the kind comments I've gotten, it's super appreciated. And for those who just started subscribing, thank you for joining me, and hopefully I do not disappoint you too much. This is a hobby, not a career, not anything serious for me, so it's just a fun thing to do, and I've kind of enjoyed some of the interactions I've had. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and tell me what you're reading, tell me what you're enjoying. Tell me your thoughts on some of these books. Have you been reading Powers of X? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And again, I really, Once a Future I thought was a real fun title to read. Take care. Happy hunting this Wednesday. Hopefully you got what you were looking for. Hopefully didn't overpay either, which is always a big thing. And join me Sunday for the preview week of the new comic releases for 8/21. I did not peek ahead, so I'm not sure what's coming out. I'm sure there's going to be something I'll complain about. I 100% know there will be. All right, take care. Thank you. Goodbye.